Kia ora and welcome to the third and final Talking Dairy Summer Yarn, where we've been revisiting our most popular episodes. Contract milking can be a great step forward in a dairy farming career, but it's not without its challenges. In this moment from Talking Dairy episode 37, Contract Milking 101, Ag consultant Brendon Attrill talks about the importance of understanding cows, compliance and pasture management before you consider contract milking. A lot of that can be learned on the job as you progress towards contract milking, but there are some things that you probably won't learn on the job, like how to negotiate contracts and how to know whether an opportunity is financially viable. Since this episode aired, a new tool has been developed to make that easier, the DairyNZ Contract Milking Premium Calculator. This tool is found on the DairyNZ website, and it allows farmers and aspiring contract milkers to compare the likely income of a contract milker to that of a farm manager on the same farm. It's a game changer in helping people work out if a role is financially viable. And if you'd like to take it the next step further, Dairy Training's popular short course, Contract Milking, is on again around the regions this autumn. This is a practical course that teaches contract milkers, or those aiming to go contract milking in the next 18 months, everything they need to know before signing an agreement, like how to understand contract clauses, calculate financial viability, understand responsibilities as an employer, and compliance requirements. It also teaches valuable business skills on how to negotiate and handle tough conversations. The best part? It's free, and course sessions are timed to fit around milking times. There's a range of other NZQA accredited short courses too, including the new Feed for Profit short course, where you can learn about profitable and sustainable pasture and feed management. These courses are taught by experienced dairy farmers, and their autumn 2025 courses are open for enrolment now. Visit Dairy Training's website at dairytraining.co.nz to find out more about their courses and apply to enrol. We'll link to this and the Contract Milking Premium Calculator in the show notes.
What skills do you need to be a successful contract milker?
Most people would have come through the ranks of the dairy industry, so sort of from farm assistant up to manager, so they should already have those farm management skills in place. But then the difference with contract milking is that you're running a business, so you need to have the skills around finance and managing your own money, compliance and employment law if you're employing staff.
Yeah, so Brendon, if you don't have those skills already, those, the business know-how and such, how do you obtain them?
Well, the most important thing is, as a contract milker, is to hitch with the right entity. So hitch with a couple or a farming entity that have got a background in developing people. So you identify who you want to be in partnership with, and you pretty aggressively try and target those entities that you know have got a track record on developing people. So once you've hitched with the right couple and family or entity, whatever that might be, then it's all about discovering, okay, where are my toolbox gaps? So, for example, if you're coming from a managing position, you may be very good, and exactly what Rachel's saying, you may be very good in cows and grass, but now you've actually got to build your skills to actually run your wider business, and particularly around staff management. So hitch with the right people. Discover the holes in your toolbox. So what tools are you missing from your toolbox? And then from that point onwards, go and discover, and Dairy New Zealand's a very good way to do that, how we're going to build that toolbox and get some really good strength around those parts of your business that you may have some weaknesses.
And is it better to try and acquire those skills before you go into contract milking, or is it okay to sort of develop them once you get into it?
Okay, that's a very good question. So how that I work in with the couples that I work with is that there's a key component of contract milkers that they have to have in place. So they have to be good with cows. They have to be very good in that compliance space. They have to be very good in pastures. Now, if they've got those three platforms in place, then we can build the rest. So the key thing is work on that platform of those 3 points first, and then you can definitely learn in the job. That's the beauty of contract milking. The ability in Taranaki is that our jobs in Taranaki are very small compared to the likes of Rachel's job and also the South Island and other parts of the country. So what we can do is take a young, keen couple with the right attitude that have got those 3 foundation points in place, and we can build the rest in the small units. And then they can step and really drive from a smaller unit into a larger unit that Rachel's actually contract milking on at the moment.
Brendon, we often hear about people who go into contract milking without understanding how you get paid, the ins and outs of that. Can you explain the cash flow issues and therefore what kind of savings somebody might need to put aside before they go into contract milking?
Okay, so every job is different. So that's the first thing. So in the recruitment process, make sure you do talk a lot about what costs that you've got in your contract milking agreement. What's the seasonality of supply and for the farm that you're partnering up or hitching with? Once you've got that base information, then you can work towards creating a cash flow. And a cash flow for contract milkers is very, very important. One key message is that your lenders or your bankers or banking partner, they're going to need good information. So you need to know your figures. You need to provide real good information for your banking partner. So that's a key point. So in relation to how you're going to be paid, there's really 2 options. You can be tied to the milk processor who, for example, when you produce a kilo of milk, then you're paid your contract rate. The upside of that is it gives you business exposure to Fonterra or Synlait or Open Country Cheese or whoever it may be. The downside is linking to the co-op is that you've got a stretch of time from June through to September or October where you're going to have no income. Now, an average size farm in Taranaki, 300 cows, you'd really want to be going into having $40,000 to $50,000 of either cash or available credit available to start your contract. If you're at Rachael scale, the figure's going to be much bigger because you've got staff to carry for those 4 or 5 months. You're probably going to be looking at paying some higher costs at the starting of the season compared to smaller units. So that's the link to the milk processor, and that's very successful in a lot of cases. The other option is that you work with your entity that you're hitching up with or your family and get them to pay you a set fee on the 20th of each month, and then you have a top-up payment in the June following. So for young couples going into contract milking, I always like this as a really good vehicle because what it means is it reduces the risk. It means that they don't have to have a lot of financial backing to actually start their career, and they know on the 20th of June they get their first payment. Now, owners or entities, we may pay out 90% of the expected production over the 12 months and split it equally into 12 equal payments, and then have the final payment in June following. As you get bigger and you discover more about the industry and you want to feel more engaged with the milk processor that you're working with, going to a direct payment from the processing side could be a bit of a process that you're on or where you want to end up. But for young couples starting their career, having a bit more security and lowering the risk are key points.
That's great. Thanks, Brendon. Rachael, I was interested in knowing what your first sort of 3 to 6 months were like as a contract milker. Had you prepared yourself well for that?
Yeah, I had. Yeah, so Brendon was talking about the 2 payment options. I've never had the set regular payments through the 12 months. That's never been an option for either job. It was you're paid by Fonterra. That's who we were supplying the month after you produce that milk. So I've always had, or for the last 5 years, had those few months where you're not getting paid anything or being paid very little. And I think that's where a lot of people trip up going contract milking. Like they've got all the management skills, all the people skills, all the compliance. But if you can't manage your finances, you're going to fall over because you've got to be able to budget ahead knowing that you're not going to have any income. But for me, I've still got to pay 3 to 3.5 staff members over those 3 months. I might have to buy new bikes or there'll be other costs that come up. I've still got to live. You've got to budget to get through those 3 months or 4 months or however long it might be. And then the flip side is then when you do start producing milk, sort of October, November, December, you get nice big milk checks coming in, but then you've got to not go out and spend 20 grand on a holiday or a new ute or something because you've got to realise that you've got tax implications, you've got other costs that you've got to meet. you've got to be able to spread that cash throughout the year. So that's where monitoring that cash flow is really critical.
You mentioned a little bit about machinery and utes and things like that. What kind of machinery might you need before you start your contract?
It really depends on the size of the job. So where I am now, I was required to have 2 4-wheelers, or I've actually got a 4-wheeler and like a Jeep sort of thing. I've got 3 2-wheelers because I've got 3 staff members. Had to have a calf trailer, a mag spreader. You need to have your own hand tools, sort of basic tools. You may or may not have a ute. That sort of depends on you, really. The smaller jobs, you might only need like a 2-wheeler and a quad. And probably if it's only you on the farm too, can keep those motorbike costs down a little bit. But yeah, that's probably the main stuff. So like with contract milking, you don't have to go out and buy a tractor or anything like that. It's just basically just your motorbikes. You do need to think about what your additional staff costs will be. So on top of wages, you've probably got, you're probably providing wet weather gear and gumboots, and you might be providing them all a set of poly grips and a hammer or something. So there are a few other little costs that add up. I guess always have a bit of a contingency cost of a couple of grand into that budget as well, because there's always stuff that comes up.
Thanks for tuning into this summer yarn from Talking Dairy. We've linked to the full episode in the show notes if you want to hear more. Make sure to hit follow so you can keep up with our latest podcasts. You can also keep up with DairyNZ news on Facebook, Instagram and LinkedIn, or go to our website and sign up for our fortnightly DairyNZ news emails. As always, if you have any feedback on this podcast or have some ideas for future topics or guests to have on the show, please email us at talkingdairy@dairynz.co.nz. Mā te wā, catch you next time.